right, guys, the last day of my Tour du Feminism Feminist Books week, which really like 2 weeks because I cheated. And what I'm offering today are all of those. That shelf and that shelf, that's most of that shelf. Romance novels. Yes, romance novels are not written about feminism, but they are feminist. I am so tired of the narrative that romance novels are weaker writing or they're frivolous, or my favorite, they're porn for women. I certainly don't think they're weak stories, and I think it really discounts all of the hard work that any writer on this platform will tell you who writes romance novels. It is not easy. It is very hard to capture the love story that will resonate with a lot of people. And then just from a business perspective, romance novels carry our industry. The romance genre props up most publishing houses. 9 times out of 10, their profit center is in romance novels. So I think it's very closed-minded to think that romance novels, that they're the weak genre and that they're not considered real writing. It takes a lot of work to craft those stories. Love stories can transform you. If we don't write about the human condition, and love is such a huge part of that, then what's the point? If I ever walked into a bookstore and there wasn't a romance section, I feel like that bookstore would be really sad. When men say that romance novels are just porn for women, I guess my response to that is, what if it is? I mean, I don't believe that, but what if it is? The same men who are complaining about women wasting money on romance novels, like the pot calling the kettle black. But it's even worse, and I'm going to explain why. Because romance novels are about women's pleasure, and women's pleasure will never really matter to men, not really. And of course, I'm generalizing. I am not speaking to you, Mr. Sir, who is the most wonderful man that ever existed. I'm talking about in general, in the way that women feel in general. There are a lot of men who just don't care. They don't care at all about women's pleasure. Men are allowed to like porn. The same men that are complaining about women wasting money on romance novels are also the same ones who love porn so much that even though there's a plethora of it out there that is free of charge, you can get free porn pretty much anywhere. But they are the ones who are also paying for it. They are still subscribing to OnlyFans sites. They're still paying for Pornhub. These are multi-billion-dollar industries, and they're not going away anytime soon. But women are shamed for liking romance novels by those same men. And it comes off as silly and dumb to them because we're designing a world where women's pleasure is actually important. In romance novels, pleasure is mutual. It's mutual. I have never read a single romance novel that the man's pleasure isn't taken into account at all and isn't a part of the story. The way she makes him feel, the way he falls in love with her, the intensity of that feeling, the intensity of that relationship, the way that it's never been like this for anyone for him, the way he falls in love. This all drives how much we love the story. But if you watch straight porn, it's almost never about the woman. It's all about the man. Women are literally holes. They do not care about your comfort or how happy you are. In fact, the more it seems like you're miserable, it seems like the more those videos are liked. I haven't seen a straight porn video in a long time that didn't have a man degrading a woman by smacking her with his dick or calling her names or telling her she's a whore or making her dress up in some little girl outfit, which is a whole other fucking conversation that needs to be had. But she's got to have a ton of makeup on and her lucite heels. I write gay romance. I write straight romance too, but I prefer gay romance. And there are a lot of people who are fascinated by this entire, there's an entire group of women who are really into this. And there are some very, very valid things that people can bring up. That's going to be a whole video on its own. I think we could talk about that. There are some valid criticisms of that. Women are sort of inserting themselves and not letting men have their own voice as queer men. There's this weird fascination, like people don't understand it. They feel like it's a phenomena. It's not. If you look at it through the right lens, you'll understand why women are sort of drifting toward this as a alternative to straight stories. It lets them imagine intimacy without the built-in power imbalance. that kind of comes with a lot of straight stories. There's no woman being diminished in some way. She's also not being used as a prop to further the men's masculinity, or it's usually two men who are on equal footing. Two men together, at least the fantasy of it, means that pleasure and vulnerability can coexist. No one is expected to be more submissive than the other. It's not a part of their identity where a woman is sugar and spice and everything nice. When women read gay romance, they get to see what equality in desire looks like. You can be as silly and nasty and gross and great and fantastic and loud, and it can be as fun as you want it to be. It's not about fetishizing gay men, which I think is the argument for some people. It's about escaping the exhaustion of being objectified. It's about wanting to see an intimacy between two people that feels fair. And the reason women like gay men more is because that's simply what straight women are attracted to. I'm not sexually attracted to women, and so I can't, when I'm reading a sapphic story, I like them, don't get me wrong, but I can't put myself into that scenario in any way. I have to read it as an outsider instead of getting engrossed in it. A part of me kind of wants to identify with one or the other characters a little bit. And so I don't get me wrong, I like them. I just don't feel like I can write them well because I don't know that the experience of being a gay woman. I can write the experience of being with a man though, because I know what that experience is. So it may not be realistic. It may not be a man's necessarily their experience. I think that the male brain that we're writing isn't as complicated as we write it sometimes. At least that's, I have a gay friend and I talked to him about this. I've talked to him about this before. And he said that the biggest complaint that he has about gay romance is that women think men think way more than they do, which is kind of true if you think about it, I guess. They're not as complicated as we make them in the book. Like they're thinking about things really deeply. They make their decisions pretty quickly. They don't have to, they're not that complicated. But gay romance allows women to get engrossed in a story where they can be untangled from this constant pull, this constant burden of having to be the lesser half of the equation. Put all of the things that you want in there, and there's never a question of, "Ooh, this is a little racy for her." You know what I mean? No, it's never racy for a guy. Guys can be whatever they want. Only women have that kind of limitation when it comes to sex, though. But let's actually talk about porn for a second, okay? And I am going to give a little bit of a trigger warning because this is a little graphic, but I feel like it needs to be talked about a little bit more. There are very large differences between gay porn and straight porn. Now, I am not naive, okay? I understand that when porn stars are doing videos, they are not just having the time of their lives. I'm sure that some men are miserable doing this. However, men in gay porn are directed to look like they're enjoying themselves. Women in straight porn are directed to look like they're miserable. Men respect other men enough where they don't want them to feel like that. They want them to look like they're having fun even if they're not. In straight porn, nothing makes a guy happier than that woman looking like she's in pain, or there's an entire subset of porn that is specifically about making her hurt, you know? And don't get me wrong, there's hardcore sections of every porn style where there is some of that, okay? And there's some in gay porn too. But if you look at the main page, we're talking about main page, kind of like first page on any porn site for this genre. Main page of straight porn is a lot of women being completely degraded. A main page of gay porn is a bunch of guys having a great old time. Women are also directed to look like prostitutes. The only time that you generally see women are directed to look like they're enjoying themselves is when they have a face on kind of shot where the person who's shooting it is directing from their face and then down to their tits and then back up to their face, their fake O face that they're told to make, and then back down to their tits. And that kind of goes on for a little while. And the only reason they want that is because that shot itself is for men who want to pretend that they're having sex with them. Gay porn is welcoming to everyone. If you're fat, hey, there's just more of you to love. Hairy, come here, you big bear. No one is asked to dress up. No one has to put on special footwear. No one has to wear makeup. If you are butt ugly, they do not care. And it's never mentioned. It's never a part of it. If a woman isn't that attractive, there are videos that literally talk about how ugly she is and how lucky she is to be part of this gangbang. And everyone is directed to look like they are enjoying it. Even the ones where he's being called a whore, he's like, yeah, I am. He's enjoying himself. In fact, in videos where the bottom doesn't have an orgasm, those are considered bad videos. Those are not generally highly rated videos. The ones where he comes more than once are like top rated videos. It's like the goal. Straight porn, not the case. I have never once seen a straight porn clip that wasn't like amateurs, like a couple that was having sex together. I'm talking like just standard porn. I have never seen a single one where there is any care about how she feels, if she's in pain, if she's okay, and they could give a flying fuck if she has an orgasm. It's novels, the hardest of the hardcore. And let me tell you, I've read some hardcore books that you can't buy in a store. Generally always involve some kind of mutual pleasure. Even if it starts off as just sex with no love, there's still a consensual going at it that leads to a relationship of some kind. And it doesn't have to be the, standard, I'm so in love with you. No, it can be totally fucked up relationship, but it's still a relationship of mutual satisfaction. It never feels like someone is being abused because it turns only one of them on. Even when you look at like books like 50 Shades, as much as I hate 50 Shades, it was still consensual. And even when at a point in the book where she felt that he was being abusive in a way, she left him. And then they made up, and he realized that there's boundaries and stuff. So it's always about like a mutual satisfaction. All men talk about is how I just want a good woman. No, they don't. They don't want a good woman. They want a good hooker. They want a good hooker. And they want a woman who will obey them most of all. Women design a relationship in a romance novel. Men create sex objects in porn. So don't let anyone tell you that romance novels are just porn for women. They have levels of porn sex, but it's about being in a relationship with a man that they can design. And by the way, these men are elevated. It's about making this amazing man, this wonderful version of a man who can be both strong and kind, by the way. We wish the men in romance novels, we wish men would let themselves be that. Men make women the lowest version of something that they can possibly be in porn. They're degraded and treated like animals, whereas women they're not degrading men. They're saying, this is what I wish you could be. This wonderful guy is who I wish you could be. All it is a man who loves you and cares about you. We want to feel this relationship where these two people are connected and there is no threat of cheating, or there's no threat of him not loving you the way that you love him. And that's part of the reason why guys don't like romance novels. These men that women are writing make them feel inferior. Like they could never compete with that. And yeah, there's an aspect of some of the guys that, he's the billionaire trope, or he's got a 20-foot long dick or something like that. Yeah, but you'd be really surprised how little any of that matters. And if you read a romance novel, you'd realize how little that matters, because in the end, she could give a shit about the fact that he's rich. It's about how he treats her and how in love with him she is. Romance novels help women find their own agency in sex, in pleasure, in desire, in the type of person that they're looking for. And that makes them very feminist. It does. All right, guys, so that is the last video for my Feminist Book Week. I hope you enjoyed the week. I had a really hard time narrowing it down. I really did. I might do another one at some point, but I hope you enjoyed my comments. And, if you agree, please leave a comment yourself. I'd love to hear what you think, and keep writing romance novels. They're my favorite books in the world, and I don't care what anyone thinks of that, and you shouldn't either. All right, guys. Bye.